Welcome to part 10 on how I developed this mixed media work. Today we're going to go over the critique and how the critique is an excellent process for getting another group of people to look at your work and give you some input.
I like the strength of all of the colors, because it's something that you don't expect to see, and it's working with all this texture that you've got. The violets are kept in control, with the orangey yellows. And then it becomes even, richer everywhere. And that the tree is not always the focus point; it's the whole picture. That looks very nice too.
Yeah, it's very easy to move the eyes through the whole painting.
Yeah.
I love the palette on the top with those purples and golds and blues, and it just all works. And then you subtly carried it down in a lighter form into the background behind the bonsai, and it just works so well. Tell me what those letters say.
Yeah.
It just says a white pine. It's Goyomatsu. It just means white pine.
Somehow
It's ambiguous because it doesn't really look like a white pine, to tell you the truth, but I still follow through with that.
Well, your tree rendering is really nice. Background is terrific.
Oh yeah.
I like the weird. I don't. What did you do to make those little diamonds in the background?
I have stencils, and I've used the stencils.
Nice, really something.
I love the stencil at the bottom. It's not like a filigree or something.
So I wanted to contrast the organic with the geometric.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I think it really works.
Yeah,
It looks velvety.
the
The way the colors are.
the tree is very organic, so contrasting that with the geometric, I thought was important.
I think you could add more contrast by the structure of a bonsai tree belongs to the branches of the trunk, and a few good dark marks that suggest limbs or trunk in the certain areas might help to move that.
I totally agree. I'm having some trouble in this area here.
Right there.
That this is two trunks, and this is too light for me. I think
That's
it needs to
funny.
go into this kind of
Yeah, my eye
kind of
saw that
darkness.
hole in the middle of the tree.
Yeah, it's a little too
And I don't know
much.
why I didn't, but I kept noticing it.
It's a huge contrast. This is one of the highest contrasted areas, and so I think it's too much.
So now, if you go in and make adjustments to this, how are you doing it? I mean, will you go on with just with paint?
Yeah, I'll do it with paint, brush, and
Okay.
stencil.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's acrylic, so I'll just go over that. It's mixed media, so it starts with watercolor. I've used some pastel, and then I use acrylic, and I'm using marble paper.
By having more, trunk and limb marks in there, dark ones, you could actually add a dark horizontal in spots, to the base of what is that called? Thing around the bottom of the tree. Down at the bottom. You could have some dark peat right around it.
Mhm. Yeah, I think you're right. But I liked, and I went back and forth in regards to these like deadwood, like stems, and then I'd go over them, and then I'd go over them, and I had a little bit of a struggle.
Looks good there. I think it's just
So they don't need to be more defined
the
than
trunk
that.
needs to come up to that contrast too, somewhere.
Okay, so like this contrast going on here to have that
somewhere
here.
in there.
I see.
That rectangular area between the two trunks right in the center, I agree that the value is too light.
Too
I
light.
think if you made the value more like it is just to the left of that rectangular area,
It's a little grayer, isn't
it's a little grayer. I think that would really soften that and not make it jump out.
And sharpen the edge of the tree so it isn't in following the pattern of that. So let us see let us see the branches and not that form. The branches disappear.
Where do you specifically?
Well,
Yeah,
I mean, if this were darkened right along there to become part of that branch, then that branch would read as a branch.
I see.
So,
But I would be really careful because if he darkens that area, even if the opening was darker, then you're still creating great contrast. And what you want to do is reduce the contrast right there because that's not what you want as the focal point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. See, for instance, the light here against the light there works fine.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And the dark here against the dark there works fine. But now I have the light sort of even lighter than that
Right.
against this really dark there.
And it's
And it seems
a
obvious.
geometric shape.
It's
and
square.
It's dead center
Mm-hmm.
almost in the painting.
Yeah.
So your eye goes there and gets trapped. It can't get out.
That's what it is, yeah.
It's a problem area. My mentor also mentioned that. I had a Zoom meeting with him, and we went over this, and he mentioned the same thing. So definitely sensitive to that.
but it's really beautiful colors.
And Ron, I wouldn't suggest necessarily doing this, but I'm wondering for myself what difference it would make if you had more of a sense of horizon, where the plant is sitting on this base here. If that was lighter than it is,
And
so edge, this area right in here. So thinking of this almost as a sky. So as the sky comes down, we go from a dark blues or whatever in a sky down to our horizon down here. And I'm thinking if that was lighter, then if all this is lighter, then this really jumps out.
yeah, that was definitely in my mind when I was producing it.
It's not bad looking though. I like to look at it.
I do
When I
too.
look at it, it's pleasing to the eye.
Very rich.
So
The colors are beautiful. And the composition holds. I don't see anything weird in it, except that one spot.
mhm.
But it's a really nice piece.
Yeah, not that this even is that great of a piece. It's just that we love nitpicking as well. And I like that. I like that process.
And what I really like is that in that background, that stenciled area in the middle third, you've taken those same hues and just put them in a darker value along that top edge. And so the whole thing and then the greens below kind of fade into the foliage. It feels very harmonious to me from top to bottom.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
It's nice to look at.
Thank you.
Okay, so as I had mentioned before, the critique is an extremely important part in the process of making your art so you can get other people's input. And from that, I got three main things. The first is not to darken this negative place in here. And I noticed that, and I really wanted to see if the critique group picked up on that. So I'm going to darken this little area in here. At the same time, more branching, more defining of the branch would help. So some of it is a little bit broken up where it can be defined a little bit better. And to lighten, even though I want to darken this, I want to lighten around in here. Just to kind of bring it out a little bit more, a little bit focused in this area. Your greatest amount of focus will always be between your lightest light and your darkest dark, wherever that happens. And so I think over in here and over in here, a little bit of lightening up of that area would be good to do. So let's take that task on. So I'm going to mix my colors, and I'm going to start with the white down in here. In this case, I'm going to use a little bit of lamp black, and that's to really highlight the darkness of it. But I can get some darkness by using some alizarin crimson and phthalo green. That makes a really super nice black. Okay, and I think for my warm colors, because I have kind of this purple in here, which is going to probably require some of that if I'm going to try to use some of that, although I don't know if I will. But we'll put a little bit on here. Now remember, yeah, I have all these colors in here, but generally it was started with a very limited palette. I had my color scheme that I wanted. I put it together based on that color scheme, but now I'm just letting the painting itself dictate what I want, what we're going to do. And so in this case, I want to use some warm. Let's use this as some warm color and then highlight that with some, and this is cadmium orange, and I'm going to use cadmium yellow light. Okay, I think I have everything I need to get the colors that I want. So, but for the branching, it's going to be pretty dark. You can see it's pretty dark. So if I just mix the alizarin crimson and the phthalo green, I get this really intense black. You can see that. And the way I check the black, whether it's on the alizarin side or on the phthalo side, is I just add a little bit of white and take a look. And if I get a good gray, then I know it's mixed well. If this was a little green, I'd probably add a little bit of the alizarin. If this was a little red, I'd add a little bit of the phthalo. But it looks like I've got a really nice green now, or gray, that I can use. All right, let's see. Let's see how this looks. Is that a little bit too dark? It's a little too dark, so I'll add a little white. We talked about this, how I go from dark to light. And in this case, I'm using a palette knife for the branching. I think I'd like to get a little bit warmer in here. So I'm going to bring in some warmer colors. How about some burnt sienna? So I'm just going to drag a little burnt sienna in here. The palette knife only gives me a certain amount of control, and that's why it's good to use. Again, because you want it to be free-form and fresh. Let's use my little magic stick here. See what I can do here. Okay, so we'll move into some of the branching, or let's darken this area first. I think again I'm going to try to get defined there. Define that twin trunk. There we go. Now you really get the idea of that twin trunk. Okay, so the next thing is to darken that area. And I have my handy dandy stencil. And let's see if I can match that color. On second thought, I think it's the green that I need to lighten first, or darken first. And you can make a really nice green with the cadmium, with the cadmium yellow light and a Mars or even an ivory black. I'm using ivory black here. Okay, I like that. Now let's work with that purple. So it's very interesting what you can do with color. This would be considered a saturated color. But if I add a little bit of the black, then that neutralizes the color and brings it down a little bit. You don't want everything to be so saturated. And I'm going over this area there. See that? Just that slight little light in there really does make a difference. And I did want overlap. So I don't want a really straight, lines in here. I want some everything to be broken up. Okay, so let's work in this area here to try to bring in some of this kind of, maybe this kind of yellowish green. Yeah, that's nice. This needs to be broken up more, and that needs to be cleaned up more. So let's work with breaking this up more. There we go. Okay, now let's clean up this area in here. Okay, I think the only other fiddling I want to do is in this area. And again, let's bring some of that in there. So you see, I was working in here for that bright color, but now I know I want to make it green, so I move my brush over here and I just drag that black into it. I can also use the black I created here to do that, and you'll see that it's a different kind of green. See the green? The different kind of green that it makes? It's a little cooler green. But I'm staying on the warm side. And so I'm sticking with the ivory black. Mars black would make it even more warm. And then I move lots of yellow into it. A little bit of white, not a lot, because that makes it gray, you see. We're not interested in gray, we're interested in green. Okay, I'm not going to fool with it anymore. I'm going to leave it alone. This will be the piece. And now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mount it. I hope you enjoyed that. Now that the artwork is finished, it's time to mount it, and that will be my next video. I'd really appreciate a like and subscribing to my channel, as well as if you would like to support me, you can do that on Patreon. I often post on Instagram my artwork as well as bonsai work. But I'd like to leave you with the idea that art is a journey. It's important to enjoy the process.